Good afternoon. Thanks for joining me today. My name is Corey Hart. I'm the product manager at RBI, and we'll be walking through SmartCharts Pro. It's a service provided by RBI. We're a subsidiary of MRIS, but we basically offer trends, reports, charts, etc. for anywhere in the MRIS footprint, from the regional level, so your Northern Virginias or your DC metro areas or Baltimore metro, at the county level, county and city, like Baltimore County, Baltimore City, city level, zip codes, and legal and advertised subdivision levels. So as I walk through the application, if I don't happen to hit on a location that is relevant to you, and I'll jump around a bit, but just keep in mind that anything that I'm showing you can be used by you specific to your location and selling scenario. I've been with RBI for 6 years now, and this is by far our best product. This is a sort of an evolution from where we had with RBI Expert. We made a lot of enhancements that we're pretty excited about. First things first, in order to sign up for SmartCharts Pro, for those of you that have not done so yet, it's simply a matter of going to getsmartcharts.com. This is our landing page. You can either click on Start Your Free Trial Now or Pricing. They really take you to the same spot. And you have the option of signing up for the monthly plan, the yearly plan, which is basically 12 months for the price of 10, or for those members of ACAR, Bay Area, GBBR, GCAR, HHAR, or Prince George's County Association of Realtors, it's included as a member benefit as part of your association membership. So click on any of these buttons. So let's say that I'm a GCAR customer or GCAR member. Click on that, and then it's just the main information you'll need to know for any of these sign-up options is your agent ID, which is basically what you use to log into Matrix, or your broker code. If you're unaware of your broker code, you can either ask your broker or you can look up your information in Matrix to find your broker code. Okay, so that's to sign up. A few other points just for afterwards. If you want further resources, you can click on the support tab on the main page. There's an FAQ section and a training session, which is where we post future webinar dates, and there's also webinars on demand when I've recorded other previous webinars. And then this definitions tab should be very useful. Any metric that we report on, any of the facets, like how do we define townhouses? How do we define bank-mediated sales? Metrics like what does months of supply mean down at the bottom. So use this page really for a good go-to when you're having questions about what a given metric means or how RBI defines certain types of metrics. Again, that's in the support tab and the definitions sub-tab. Okay, with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started into the application. If you have any questions as I'm going through, please use the panel, the go to webinar panel. There's a questions box, and I will try to be sure to pay attention to those as I'm going through. Okay. Lastly, if you have questions after this that you either don't want to bring up now or just they come to you later, you can email me at corey@rbintel.com. That's corey@rbintel.com, and I should be able to get back to you within 1 to 2 days, usually sooner than a day. Okay, let's jump into the product itself. So the product is organized in such a way that the default is the Mid-Atlantic region. This is basically for all of the MRS footprint. I can change any location, so let's say that I wanted to go to Chantilly, the city, or any of the zip codes within Chantilly, or I wanted to browse through some of the legal and advertised subdivisions in Chantilly. Then it's just a matter of finding them from this list, clicking it, and then the entire application refreshes. So that change location is really going to help you explore different areas near you. So this should be your best friend as you're using SmartCharts. First things first, we'll just get into the quickest hitter for you. If you're in a rush or you just want some materials to help explain that you're paying attention to the market. Maybe you're going to an open house and you want to leave some market trends material with your name on it. You can go to the reports tab. So I'm in South Riding, Chantilly, Virginia. So let's say that I'm going to a townhouse open house or a townhouse listing presentation. I can either select all of these types, just one of the types. All covers basically the aggregate of all of these. But for this example, I'm just going to turn on all and attached townhouse. July 2015 is already on. Click go, and this is going to give me a PDF report. This PDF is great in that it takes the key metrics and bubbles them up. It's a pre-canned report. No further manipulation needed by you. Just you can print it, save it, print out several, leave a bunch at your open house, attach it as a part of a newsletter. And the nice thing about this is we've included your branding from MRIS into the report itself. So this is my dummy information, but it has my name, broker, contact information, etc. The first page, since I selected all, this is for all residential homes in South Riding for the month of July. You can see that the key metrics are covered: new listings, new pendings, closed sales, prices, active inventory, DOM, and sold to original list price ratio. And for each of those metrics, you can see how the most recent month compares to the same month last year, which is July 2014, obviously, or the same month, or the previous month, so last June. Pay most attention to this YOY change in basically all cases. That year over year is much more important than the month-to-month changes. We can sort of predict out. We know sales are about to start going down now that we're getting into the off season. So that month-over-month change shouldn't be something that is alarming. It's that year-over-year change is something to pay most attention to. Likewise, if you're in a subdivision or a low-volume zip code, a lot of times these year-to-date aggregates are just as meaningful, if not more meaningful, because it's going to give you more data. It's a more solid trend because there's more data supplying it. So, for instance, even though new pendings were up 65% for the month, overall, so far this year, they're down 6.3%, and sales were up 3.3% from last year in July, but down 2.6 year-to-date. So pay attention to those year-to-date trends as well. They are important. The way to read these bars down at the bottom, this gives you a look at the number of active listings last month at the end of the month, how they compare to the 5-year minimum, which was 31 for July. The 5-year max was 67 for July, and the 5-year July average is 48. So we're right around the 5-year average in a good spot inventory-wise. And DOM, similar, the min 17, max is 69. This is the average, not the median DOM. And I can also see that homes sold faster this July than the previous 5 Julys average. The second part of the report, since I had selected attached townhouse, this is only looking at that townhouse segment. So this is more meaningful to the townhouse seller that I'm going to a listing presentation for. This has similar charts around the outside, but there's also a narrative included to sort of call out important trends in just plain English. So if you're not as comfortable with talking to the trends as they show in these infographics, then you can also reference that narrative. So that's the Local Market Insight Report. It's a great report for getting your name out there, distribute it to as many or as few people as you'd like. There's a ton of different ways to include it in your listing presentation package, include it as a complement to your CMA, and so forth. These detailed reports are available on a monthly, year-to-date, quarterly, or yearly level. So let's just go with the year-to-date in this instance. Hit go. Again, I'm in South Riding, and so year-to-date in the South Riding legal subdivision, we can see how sales are looking compared to the same 7 months last year, days on market up or down versus the same time period last year, et cetera. It's not the sexiest report necessarily, but there is a ton of data to get at. This days on market bucket for homes sold, this is obviously valuable information to share with your prospective, let's say, some folks you're farming to see if they're interested in selling their home. Look, 63 of the 187 sales so far this year have sold in 1 to 10 days. That's the largest bucket, and that's obviously something that should be of interest to folks that are sort of on the fence about whether or not they'll be selling. This matrix down below, we've had agents that this sort of template sort of preceded RBI. It's sort of the NAR template, and what we've heard is, let's say I'm going to a house that's 3-bedroom attached townhouse and it's in that 400 to 500K range. They'll just go take a highlighter, highlight that row, highlight that row, so they can talk about trends specific to it. Okay, so that's the detailed report. It's another just one click and you're there. Obviously, if I change my location, let's say I'm just going to DuPont, a DuPont zip. When I'm on DuPont, click that, then the report obviously is related to DuPont and Adams, Morgan. The next, actually, let me see. It looked like I had a question. You may get this, but can waterfront and/or water view homes be specified in a report? It's a good question. It is something that folks in Lake Anna and around some of the other lakes and along the Chesapeake Bay have asked for. It's something that we are looking into including. I know that it would be a big help, but at this point that can't do that. We can't do that through this application, but it is something that we are exploring. Okay. Let's see. Now I close my questions and it goes away. I hate when it does that. View questions. Okay. The second tab that can be of use, and it's really pretty quick view as long as you know the different components and what they mean, is our market gauges on the dashboard. So let's go back in this example to my legal subdivision of South Riding. The dashboard offers what we call market gauges up top. Now these market gauges, once you understand the components, give you a ton of information about the most recent month and how it compares to its 5-year trends for that month. So for instance, for closed sales, the minimum is going to be bounded on the left side. The maximum, it looks like 33 is probably the max. And where the color breaks is the 5-year July average. The dial is obviously the most recent month. So anytime you see, especially for sales or new pendings or prices that are above that 5-year average, that's obviously a nice story to tell your prospective seller or buyer. New pendings are not at their 5-year high, but they're above the 5-year average. Active listings are sitting right at the 5-year average or just below. Months of supply, which I'll get into in a little bit of detail just because it is an important metric, but it is a bit abstract. Excuse me, months of supply basically means if no new homes go on the market in the months ahead, you're just looking at just the active inventory at the end of the month. How long would it take to sell through that inventory given the 12-month average sales pace over the last 12 months? So in DC, for example, DC district-wide, they're at a months of supply of 2.2 months, meaning there's very, very low inventory relative to demand. And so that is what puts upward pressure on pricing. Sometimes in these smaller zip codes, you might see a months of supply that's extremely low that might not lend itself towards those upward pressure on pricing. But when you have a county-wide aggregate that has a very small months of supply, that's why even though DC is at a all-time high in terms of pricing, the prices are continuing to go up because there's just so little supply and there's so much competition among buyers. You can scroll through to see other metrics. So in this neighborhood, sales prices are at a 5-year July minimum. Not too far off that 5-year July average, but significant enough. And that could be because there are more townhouses that were sold this month versus the average in July, but that's something to pay attention to as well, is what the composition of that inventory. Median list price for active listings, average sales prices, you can see there is a difference between the median and average. We at RBI and most housing sort of experts would say pay attention more to the medians than the averages, that average/mean. Medians are less susceptible to being crazy influenced by outliers. So like with days on market, if there's a home in this subdivision, and I know actually I live near there, so I know there's been a home that's been on the market, it seems like 6 months. If that one home sells and let's say 7 others sell in less than a week, that average DOM is going to skew much higher just because of that outlier. The median is much less susceptible to that. It's just the middle point. So this is basically saying half the homes that sold in South Riding were on the market 17 days or fewer before contract, whereas the 5-year average for the median DOM is 25 days. So that's an improvement and good news for sellers, not so much for buyers. Days on market tends to go down when months of supply goes down. There's a lot of correlations with any of these metrics with months of supply. I'm not going to run through all of these here. I'm going to go ahead and jump down to the next section, but I did want to show that these can be embedded on your website. So if I click embed, and at this point it's still a one at a time embed. I know we have some requests for saying, well, I want to get just an entire shelf of these like you have in this module. We don't yet have that ability available, but you can pick, say, let's say I want to have months of supply somewhere on my homepage. For whatever reason, we tend to see these dashboards used sort of in a right rail on a lot of our users' homepages because they're small, and you want to impress folks with, hey, I'm paying attention to these sort of interesting stats. Update automatically means that on the 10th of the month, when our new data comes in, so on September 10th, when we get new metrics, you'll have August data on your website as soon as we have it on our website. So that's a nice set it and forget it, one-time manual effort, and then you're done. It takes maybe 3-4 minutes, and you're good to go. I'll show a more in-depth example of embedding once we get into the charts, but just keep in mind when I'm doing that these gauges can also be embedded by just copying and pasting the embed code into the HTML of your site. Looks like we have another question. Is this recorded? Yes, hopefully the recording will work this time. Go to webinar, and I have been battling for some time, but I am recording this, and we hope to post it afterwards on the support section. Okay, the other sections within the dashboard is just Spotlight. This is just showing the most important trends and how they compare to the last year, which is YOY, and month over month. Again, these MOMs can be scary if folks aren't aware of the normal seasonal pattern, especially in a hotter market like in the Northern Virginia or even the Baltimore area. Month over month is just not, we can predict out what that pattern's likely going to look like going forward. So pay more attention to this YOY in almost every case. The July contract snapshot just gives you a view of how things compare, contract and sales-wise over the last 5 Julys. Now the Explore section. So I'm going to go ahead and back out to Northern Virginia. See that months of supply, it's nearing a balanced market. 4 to 6 months is generally considered balanced. Anything less than 4 months can be considered a seller's market. Anything higher than 6 months, and it varies, and there's some debate over what is balanced, but we at RBI tend to say 4 to 6 months is generally a balanced market. But Explore. So let's say that you're focusing on setting someone up right that wants to move near Dulles, Virginia. So let's say they're working at AOL and they're on a budget, let's say of $400,000. It's nice to sort of walk them through the Explore section to sort of give them a lay of the land of where the home's more affordable, near locations you're looking, and where might you be priced out a bit. So Fairfax County, let's say we look at Fairfax County. Okay, that's 480K basically year to date is the median sales price there. You can see that there's July, so just the most recent month, and there's year to date aggregates. I almost always tend to get into the year to date when I'm using Explore, just because it gets rid of some of the blips that can happen with smaller volume areas like, say, Falls Church City. Okay, so Fairfax County, they have a budget of $400,000. It's at 480, so that can be a bit scary. So let's just dive into Fairfax County and see if there might be some locations that would fit within my hypothetical client's price range. So when I get to Fairfax County, I have the option of looking at this through cities, zip codes, advertised, and legal subdivisions. Basically, all the children location of the larger location can be found here. So let's look at cities and the median sale price for cities and see if any sort of look to be more feasible for my client's budget. Great Falls, Dunloring, McLean, they'd probably stay away from there. But there's Centerville, Virginia, down below. $370,000 is the median sale price so far this year, where Lord and Reston might be somewhere to work with, especially if they're looking at a detached home. Attached homes, maybe they can find something here, but let's say that my client, my buyer is really kind of looking for a detached home. So Centerville, Virginia, let's narrow down on that a bit further. And we can see that there are two zip codes, one 20121, the other 20120. Both look to be near my hypothetical buyer's price range. Now I can dive into, okay, let's look at the legal subdivisions within this city. And if we sort this by price range, then let's see, where's Sully Station? I know that's one that Sully Station, 405, 405. This looks to be within their price range. Sully Station, Shelley Woods, some of these other locations that I, as an agent, am aware of. Okay, these sort of fit the criteria of what my client's looking for. You can dive into Sully Station. This is just looking at prices, but we can also look at things like median days on market. Where are homes selling fastest? Year to date, Sully Station, 12 days. So half the homes that have sold so far in 2015 have sold in 12 days or fewer. That I can give guidance to say, look, that's a very active, fast-moving market, mainly because of the affordability for a lot of these zip codes in subdivisions within Centerville. So that I can provide that guidance to say, we're going to need to move fast. If you find something you like, not to scare you, but we just have to be on our toes. And if we find something, we need to sort of move quickly because there's obviously a lot of competition for these more affordable areas. So that's an idea of using Explore. But there's another way to get at comparing locations. Last thing about Explore, other than there's a ton of metrics to do a comparison to find out how things are looking in your neighboring zip codes and counties and how they compare to the parent. But I can also export these to Excel at any time and do further data manipulation offline, outside of the application if need be. Okay. Let me see if there are any questions at this point now. Is this recorded? I got that answered. And is this recorded? Okay, looks like we're good on questions. Before I get into just the basic fundamentals of using the charts, I did want to go through a few scenarios. If you follow along, I'm just going to use the charts. They might seem a bit, I've been using this since we built it 6 years ago, so I'm comfortable with it. But the more you play around with this product, the more comfortable you're going to be and the more scenarios you can find to use the data therein. Let's say that you wanted to compare locations. Let's say that somebody, this 30-something that wants to move somewhere near AOL. They are trying to get a lay of, okay, what's affordable? In this new hypothetical, let's say it's just a 30-something millennial, most likely looking for a townhouse, wants to stay in the mid-300s if possible. What we can do is go to Northern Virginia, to set at a high level the right expectations. Townhouses. These are called facets. You can see when I have multiple facets turned on, basically home segments turned on, I can only change metrics. I can't add metrics, and you'll see that more as we go through. Note, once I've instead just done one, now I can add multiple metrics. So you can either compare metrics, you can compare segments for one metric, and what I'm going to show you is how to compare one segment, one metric, and compare multiple locations. So in Centerville, Northern Virginia, it's obviously expensive, 23.9. But let's go to Loudoun County. Again, this is for townhouses, closed sales. I'm switching this to median sale price. And let's do it on a quarterly basis just so that we have more data to play with. So 385,000. That's close to my mid 300s agent overall. So where else, if they drill in further, might they be interested? So let's look at Ashburn, which is right down the street, 20147. Aldi, which is a little further west. And you can see I can compare cities or zip codes or legal subdivisions. There's no restrictions on the types of location types that can be compared. Centerville, and let's just do Sully Station. Okay, so now I can give a good view of, okay, Loudoun County's at 385, 20147 in Ashburn's at 380. That might be, you might be priced out there if you have a 325 budget. Aldi is at 414.9. Centerville is at 340K, and Sully Station's at 395K. So it might be, let's take a look at Centerville. It's in Fairfax County, but it's not that far from your site, and you get the school system in Fairfax County. Maybe if they let their high schools get bigger, whatever. Centerville, I know as an agent, this is probably something that fits within my buyer's idea of a location they're interested in. One thing to note though, so we can see Centerville is by far the least expensive in terms of median sales price, but we can also look at things and note everything that I have set up around the chart. When I change metrics to instead go to, let's say, price per square foot, and now there's a different story. Everything is still intact, but we can see that Centerville's price per square foot, median sale price per square foot, is actually much higher than the other areas, and that's likely because the townhouses in that Centerville location are likely smaller than the ones elsewhere, and so value-wise, you're actually paying more, even though the prices might be, the overall price, net price for the home might be lower there. So this is just an example of sort of exploring different locations, helping your buyer narrow in, not having to go into Matrix and do a bunch of searches to find basic stats. This is just bubbled up for you. We do the aggregation, and you can use it as you'd like. Another thing that we can look at is, okay, well, how hot are these markets? That's where you can get into supply and demand and months of supply. All of these for townhouses, with the exception of Sully Station, are in strong sellers markets. And I can tell you that across Northern Virginia, townhouses are the most attractive homes due to affordability issues, is my opinion. But townhouses really across the board are very much in sellers market territory, whereas detached, sometimes you'll see, especially more expensive zips or subdivisions, months of supply getting into the 6, 7, 8 month range. So that's how to explore, use Explore, and to use compare locations in a variety of different ways to help your agents or your clients. Another scenario of using these charts, let's say you have an ambitious seller and let's say they bought their home a few years ago, they need to move, but getting max amount of money is crucial to them. They can't sell for less, they've got some estimate that says their home is 500,000 and you know it when you've done your CMA, it's really at 420 or whatever, but the necessity for them is to receive the most amount of money they can. There are a few things to show them about when to buy, when to sell, how long it might take, etc. Probably the most important one is just looking at, you can just go out to the DC Metro regional level to get sort of macro trends of what happens seasonally. Using a chart like this, going back 10 years, and see how below the chart is where I can adjust to go by months or by quarters, or I can show 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, up to 10 years. So this 10-year chart is a great way of setting context of where the current market stands. You can see we're well below that sort of bubble in the mid-2000s, but sales are coming back up. But the main thing to focus on here is you can see that seasonality, the pattern of the seasonality. I can add metrics, or I can first change this to a line chart down below. You can see more clearly, spring, winter, spring, winter, spring, winter. There's one blip in 2010 just due to the tax credit, but it's a pretty pronounced pattern. And again, that's why that month-to-month change is not something really worth noting unless you're comparing it to the 5 or 10-year month-to-month average for that time period. But it's not just sales, it's contract activity that you can show. So I can click on Add Metrics and show new pendings. You can see they're a leading indicator. So this is a great way to get ahead of what sales counts are going to look like in the months ahead. 1 to 2 months, these new pendings usually become sales. So it's a good leading indicator. We can also look at active listings just to see how far we've come in terms of inventory. See, we were peaked at nearly 25,000 in the DC Metro market, and now we're down to 12,564. That's why months of supply are much lower. Back here, you had 6, 7, 8 months of supply. The seasonality plays out not just in inventory and sales, but the most important thing for this scenario is the impact that seasonality has on other things, like especially prices. So I can show that by keeping that 10-year view on, and let's look at pricing trends. You can see the same pattern, spring, winter, spring, winter, spring, winter. Very consistent pattern. Some slower markets and more rural counties might not have quite as pronounced of that seasonal pattern in pricing, but it's obvious here. We actually did an analysis where we looked at 10 years worth of data for the DC Metro market, and so this isn't going to be applicable to all different markets. You can do this yourself actually by downloading this data to Excel, but we looked at the median list price for new pendings over time, and we looked at 10 years worth of data. What we found was December is the best time to buy a home if you're looking for good deals, in that the December median list price for new pendings was 6% lower than the average for the year. Conversely, May is the best time to sell a home in terms of pricing. May, I think their median sale price average over 10 years was 7% higher than the yearly average. So that difference between December, what you're going to get in December, and what you're going to get in June is worth paying attention to. That's guidance that you can give to somebody that's really focused on getting as much money as possible, and they might not be as concerned with how long it takes, but they just need to get that right. So if it might be, it's hard to do, but say, look, if you really want to max out how much you're going to get, let's talk about the right time frame to list. The second thing you can show is, or the third thing is the impact it has on pricing ratios. So the median sold price to original list price ratio also has that pattern. So this means half the homes that sold in May 2013, half of them received at least 100% of original list price, half of them less. But that seasonal pattern plays out there just because of supply and demand dynamics. Yes, you're not going to have as much inventory to sift through. You know, if you're talking to a buyer, there's not going to be as much inventory to sift through in December and options out there. But there's also less competition. Less folks are trying to buy, and some of those sellers are maybe have missed the boat for that spring season, and they're more willing to compromise. So that's another chart to show the right time to sell is really, in the spring time frame. If my seller says, well, I want to go now, and I want you to go up 10% or whatever it might be for the price. I know you've given me the CMA, you've done this research, you're the expert, but I'm telling you, Zillow told me something else, and that's what I want to go with. This is another chart. This is sort of the magic chart that we recommend using because it's going to show objective data. And wait a sec as I build it, but it's going to show objectively what the impact of days on market on average sold price to original list price ratio. So now I'm just looking at 4 quarters worth of data. And for a metric like this where you're just trying to talk about the trend, you can go at the county level. Let's just say, just for kicks, let's switch out to Baltimore County. So 94.4% is the average amount of original list price received at time of sale. Switch this to bar view, and then I go over to my segments bar, and one of the segments is days on market. So this is bucketing those homes that sold in 0 days. They were on market and sold that same day. Those homes that sold in the 1 to 10 days in the second quarter, 11 to 20 days, 21 to 30, 31 to 60, 61 to 90, 91 to 120. These steps are consistent, and it makes intuitive sense, but it's not an anecdotal thing. This is a chart showing you, look, if we go 10% higher than what I think what I'm recommending the value should be, and it sits on the market for 2 to 3 months, you're going to end up eating that 10% anyway. So let's go back to the CMA. We can talk through any other objections you might have to to that valuation, but I'm just saying we can list at the price you want to list, but ultimately the market value is the market value. And if you're looking at 91 to 120 days, you're down in the 80s high 80% is the most you might receive of your original list. Conversely, if I'm working with a buyer and they're interested in a home that's been on the market for 120 days, this might be a starting basis point for the pricing negotiations with the seller's agent to say, look, obviously you might be a bit overpriced here. This is where the median or average is for homes like yours that have sat for a long time. Let's start from there, and it's a good sort of objective way to set a starting basis and to back it with objective data. While we're in Baltimore County, let's go ahead and talk about distressed sales. Distressed sales, meaning foreclosures and short sales. Foreclosures have come back in Maryland over the last 2 years just because of the difference in the legislative process or whatever it was. The courts were trying to do the right thing, I guess, and the state was trying to do the right thing by helping people from not getting their homes taken away back in the really dark times. But really what that sort of did was delay the inevitable. And so while Virginia and DC have really worked through a lot of their foreclosures, there's still a ton of inventory coming into Baltimore. And that can be panned out by looking at, let's just say, 4 years worth of data, and we'll go back to sales, and over on this right side, another option is the bank mediated, and that's just I guess a friendlier term for distressed. We chose bank mediated, but it basically means distressed sale, foreclosures or short sales. So if we look at foreclosures and we turn on short sales and we turn on non-bank mediated, basically non-distressed sales, we can see that, non-distressed sales still are the majority by far of sales in the county. If I click change from previous year, this is going to show me the percent change in these different segments and the number of sales. So in the, well, this is quarterly. I'm going to switch back to monthly. So over the last 2 years, really, foreclosures have really come back. They're more than double. Like the 177 foreclosure sales in July are more than double the number in July 2014. That's going to have a negative impact on pricing. So if I switch this chart to instead look at pricing trends, and let's just look at 3 months bar view. Back to actual values. Non-distressed sales in Baltimore County are getting 245K. That's the median list price for new pendings. I'll switch this back to median sold price for sales. 250K. Short sales 150K. Foreclosures 121,000. So that obviously is going to have a net. That's partially why, other than Baltimore's a pretty balanced market with 5.5 months of supply, but those foreclosures can have a negative impact on pricing as well, obviously. Another factor to talk about, if you have a buyer, say just some cautionary guidance about short sales can be panned out by 2 other trends that are new to SmartCharts, but they're great for setting the right expectations. One being there's days on market, so the median DOM, so half the foreclosures sold in 35 days or fewer. Half of the non-distressed sold in 26 days. Half the short sales took 72 days before contract for those that sold. But there's another metric that is called median contract to settle. So this is how long does it take once I get the contract from the buyer's agent, how long does it take to ultimately close? So half of the half of the sales of all types took 42 days in contract. The third is median days to settle. This is great if you have a buyer, if you have a seller that's, let's say they have a new construction and they're trying to figure out what timing works. Do I want to jump into a hotel now? How long should I expect this sales process to work so that I can be done with it and maybe have that money to put into my new home? 78 days is the total. So it's basically original list to contract is here, contract to settlement is here, and days to settle, which is original list through contract to settlement, is 78 days. That's for all home types. For short sales, it's 263 days. So if we compare this contract, and it's mostly because of this contract to settle piece of it. So short sales versus foreclosures versus non-bank mediated. 99 days is the median amount of time spent. The average is going to be even higher. The average is 115 days. So that helps you to set expectations for your buyer or seller in the short sale environment to say, look, this isn't abnormal. I know you're calling me once a week saying I'm not doing enough with the bank. It's just we're below the average at this point still. Another new metric to pay attention to, and I realize I'm running a bit short on time. I'll get into embedding in 1 second. Months of supply. In supply and demand, there's months of supply, so we can see short sales 6.3, non-bank mediated at 5, balanced. Foreclosures are a seller's market for foreclosures. There's a lot of deals in Baltimore County, evidently. Another metric within the supply and demand category is the seller success rate. So this is showing the seller success rate for all homes. This means for those homes that were in contract status that left contract in the month of July. So this doesn't include those that are still in contract. Those aren't part of this equation. This is just you're in contract and then you change to a different status. You can either sell, successfully close, or you can fall through, go back to active, get delisted, etc. So this means 83% of homes that left contract status, 83% overall were successfully closed. Foreclosures, 79%. Non-distress is at 86%. Short sales, this is actually a good month for short sales in Baltimore County. Only 60% of those successfully closed. The rest fell through. So not only are you looking at waiting 183 days on average to finally close, but there's still a decent likelihood, only 40%, less than 40% of homes, short sales that were in contract that left contract status in these previous months were successful. Oh, way more than half are failing. That you should keep in mind when you're trying to set what your business plan is going to be. If let's say you have a buyer that says, oh, I really love that short sale. I like it more than the foreclosure or non-distress sale next door. I like it so much. You can show them these kind of metrics to say, look, I understand that, but you might be in for a bit of a rough road. We can work through it, but just go into it with your eyes open. In terms of portability of these charts, so let's say that I just want to show let's say I want to share this chart. I'll just build one really quickly. Average SP to OLP by days on market. Let's say I want to share this chart with my stubborn seller. Before we're having a face-to-face, just to say, pay attention to this. You can either click share and just share this via email or Facebook or Twitter, and that's just going to direct them back to this interactive chart. Their experience is going to be, wow, I can turn these things on or off. Man, my agent really is into technology and this is cool. But they'll also get the content of it. Other options would be to download. You can download it as a PDF or a PNG. So a PNG, it's like a JPEG. It's just a portable network graphic. It's not interactive, but this is something that I could copy and paste into the body of an email with no problem. Also, PDF, similar thing. It's just going to open a PDF just with that particular chart. And you can see, even though my legend's over here and my metrics are up there, once you've done the portable option, we formatted it so that the legend that was over here, this interactive legend, is now just a baked legend underneath the chart. So that's a way of sharing information via newsletter, email, Twitter, whatever. There's plenty of different options to use to convey information and to show that you're paying attention to the market. To embed charts, let's say that I just, rather than wasting time because we're running short, I'm just going to say I'm going to embed this chart on my site. Or let's go out to Baltimore Metro, just have some different look. Isn't it nice that it just refreshes right away? We used to have these things stacked and you'd have to rebuild the chart every time. It was a pain. So let's say I want to share this chart on my website for all to see, and I want it to stay there as an iframe, and I'd rather not have to do it a bunch of different times. The embed options offer that ability. So there's the auto update version and there's a fixed date range version. Auto update means when our new data comes in on the 10th, your website's updated on the 10th with the most recent data. Fixed date range would be if you're a blogger, or let's say that you're putting together a report just about a particular month. You don't want the charts to then update and be out of sync with the narrative you're putting around them. That's where you do fixed date range, which means this chart is the last date this chart's ever going to show is July 2015. So that's good for your archives if you want to go that route. But auto update version is where I want to build out a stats section on my site, and I want to focus on 7 zip codes and get into just the basic metrics from there. I'm going to do the auto update version and never have to mess with it again other than sending traffic to my site. You can change your size options anywhere from 300 by 280 up to 785 by 440. Let's pick 620 by 330. I have a exact site sort of demo page, and you can see I've embedded a ton of these as I've done these various demos. But let's say that I wanted to create a chart here. I'd go to my admin panel, my content management system. This is ExactSite, but there's a lot of parallels between ExactSite or Drupal or any other content management system that you might use. Click on the page that I want to add this chart. not why I'd put a Baltimore Metro chart on the South Riding page. Give me some creative license here. The first view in most CMS systems is going to be a what you see is what you get, a WYSIWYG, sort of a Word doc look and feel where as I'm typing, it's just showing me what it's going to look like. If you're not comfortable with HTML, my recommendation would be just go down in the WYSIWYG view of it and say, hey, put that Baltimore chart here. And then I'm going to switch over to HTML. And it's scary and ugly and what is all this stuff, but oh, here's where I said put that chart here. Okay, so I'm going to delete that and go back to my chart, auto update version 620 by 330. Either right click and copy or just hit Control C, go back to my HTML view and just paste that in. Switch back to design. And publish. Okay. And now, if I refresh this page, scroll down, embedded a lot of charts. But I can see this is the chart that I just embedded. If I don't do anything else, next month this is going to show through August, 6 months through August, then September, October, November. This is not the layout of a page I'd recommend, obviously. There's other ways to go about embedding these. Where's my buying power? This is one that somebody else set up. But there's a variety of different ways. These are showing the market gauges as they've been embedded. It's just really going to depend on the layout of your site, what stats you want to focus on. I always say less is more in terms of putting charts on your page. Not the number of charts, but just the number of series on each chart. I've seen some users that maybe go a little too heavy with showing 5 different home types or 5 different metrics that are just kind of jumping all over the place. Try to keep it to what's the core thing that I want to show up. If I'm in an area that has 1 or 2 condos and someone doesn't have any condos, then I'm not going to include condos as part of that chart that I build on this page. So it's really just a matter of your preference, what type of metrics you want to convey. The biggies are going to be your median sales prices, your days on market, the SP to OLP ratio, but maybe put some narrative around it to explain what it is, and so forth. But it gives you anything that you can build within this charting space, you can then use to put on your website for all your users to enjoy. That's about all I have time for. I apologize for running over. I'm already at 1:53. Let me see if there are any other questions that I can cover. And again, if you have questions afterwards, feel free to reach out to me at Corey, C-O-R-E-Y, at rvintel.com. I don't see any further questions, so I'll thank you for your time and hope I didn't run through things too quickly. Hopefully this recording will work and you can watch it on demand and fast forward through my stammering points and find those that you're interested in on the support page. Okay? And with that phone call, that'll do it. Thanks, everyone.